Welcome to this episode of Tech Threads. I'm your host, Max Watson, and today we are talking about how to break into product management and how AI is changing that process with John Fontenot, who's the VP of Product at Terlumina and also the co-founder of Path to Product. Well, John, welcome to Tech Threads. I'm glad to have you on tonight.
Yeah, Max, thanks for having me, man. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, we got a really awesome episode for those who are tuning in to listen. Tonight's topic is kind of like breaking into product management and also talking about Path to Product, which John will explain a little bit later. He's the co-founder of it. And it's this awesome platform and program to help people who want to be product managers get into product. So I'm super excited to dive into that. But before we kind of jump into what I wanted to talk about tonight, John, could you kind of explain who you are, what you do, and a kind of a little brief overview of what Path to Product is?
Yeah, absolutely. So, John Fontenot, currently VP of Product at Terlumina, which is a small startup, and as Max mentioned, co-founder of Path to Product, which I've been working on for the last 4 years. Which Path to Product's kind of a passion project of mine turned business, where I spent about 2 years trying to transition into product management after discovering what it was, learning more about it, and trying to like get my hands dirty. Um, Bumped my head quite a bit, took some advice from a recruiter, kind of got into a software company and kind of backdoored my way in. And just from there it became a question of how do we make this a more streamlined process for people? So I've done several things across several industries through like ICPM roles, director, group product manager, now VP of product. So yeah, kind of seen it at different levels, different size of companies, and excited to help people make that transition that they're looking to get.
Yeah, no, for sure. I know a lot of people, especially in the UPG community, they're either like
Mhm.
college students or people in other careers, kind of like you did with your path, and they want to get in because they've learned that product is such an awesome career with so many diverse things you can do. And so hopefully this will help them a lot, either know kind of what they can do now from like, someone like you who's very successful and has done this path to kind of help them jumpstart their path so they don't have to, like you said, like butt your head against a bunch of things and then finally like, oh, I got in finally. So I really
Yeah.
hope to help them with that. But could you explain kind of more about Path to Product and kind of what's the process look like in Path to Product to get people from either like ground zero or another professional career to product management?
Yeah, for sure. And I'll take one step back just to explain the origins of it and why it's set up the way that it is. Because
Perfect.
there's a lot of PM courses out there on like Coursera, Udemy, and there's a lot of great ways to get knowledge, a lot of books, a lot of articles. But what I found when I was trying to get into product management was I didn't know what to do. I looked at people's profiles and said, "Oh, they have these Pragmatic Institute certifications, or they have an MBA," and I started guessing like, well, what are the things I need to do to be taken serious as a PM candidate? And it wasn't until I actually got into product that, like, kind of serendipitously, I was gaining some hands-on experience working with a full stack developer neighbor of mine to build some side products. And I was doing some things that actually resonated, but really what it comes down to is experience, right? And all my research with hiring managers, recruiters, like that's what it boiled down to is there's no other good measure for a hiring team to initially vet candidates outside of experience. And so that leaves us in a conundrum of, if I need experience and I can't get the job without experience, what do I do? And that's what Path to Product is. Like our mission is to bridge the gap in product management experience for aspiring PMs. And so the way that we do that, happy to go into that, is part of building out the platform was understanding what are the common threads in product management that never change. Because you'll hear it all the time that product management's different in every company. It doesn't look the same. And in some ways that's true. But if you break it down and strip it down to its core, product management has several common threads, regardless of B2B, B2C, health tech, consumer, social media. There's some things that never change. And so the curriculum is designed to really hit on those things and to give you practical ways to practice those skills in a very structured way, to where you can kind of go from business goal to problem discovery to ideation and solutioning, product testing, and then actually writing the requirements that you would eventually work with design and development to implement.
Yeah, I think that's such a good like structure with like getting this experience. I had that same experience coming out of college because I graduated in like a communication degree. It was like more like
Mhm.
user research and technology research, but I'm currently a software engineer. And how I did that is I just had all this experience. I built products. I worked on like an IT project management team for an internship. And because I had those past experiences, when I like went to go get jobs and I want to be like, hey, I want to be a software engineer right now. Eventually I do want to transition into product because I think product's a super awesome career. But
Yeah.
that's what helped me get into there is like having experience, having projects that were like launched online, people using them, and that really stood out. So I think that platform is super awesome. And for those listening, like I'm sure I feel like this is a very common theme across multiple industries. Like experience does trump a lot. Obviously, I think certifications do help, maybe kind of set you apart, but the experience is like the bread and butter. That's what we should, really push for. So in path to product, I mean, how would you recommend like someone who is an aspiring product manager or who is like from a different career out of college, how can they gain this experience? Or do you have any advice on how they can get real world, experience that a PM like you or a recruiter would see and be like, wow, like this person has, these skills that we are looking for?
Yeah, it hasn't been easier than it is today with the proliferation of AI and these tools like Bolt and Lovable. And I was playing with several Replit's, another good one, where you can literally build products very quickly, right? And as you mentioned, being able to ship products and actually show that experience of putting something that's real out there. Path to Product's actually going to have a course coming out in a few months that's going to walk you through a similar process to the core course that we have. But if you're not a technical person, like if you don't have a software engineering background like you do, you can actually build it in a no code platform. So that way you don't have to be super technical to actually get a product out into the wild. So to your point, there's so many ways you can get experience now, right? If you understand the core theory around what product management is, you can treat a YouTube channel, a Instagram or TikTok channel, a podcast. You can treat all these things as products and go from discovery, like what problem am I trying to solve with this thing? Who is my audience? How can I test and iterate to see what resonates? And how can I actually monetize this thing? Like all these things are relevant product skills. And so, yeah, you can ship digital products, and that's probably the most relevant thing, but actually getting the skills that sharpen your product sense and your ability to ship with a developed taste and putting some of the best practices into place, some of the tools and frameworks, those opportunities are available all around you. Path to Product just helps you structure that into a way that sets you up to, have a portfolio that resonates at a pretty high level.
For sure. Do you have any real, or like, I know there's a lot of people who have gone through path to product and been very successful and gotten jobs. Do you have any like success stories or examples of things they built? Like either like no code, low code, or even like full like app. Do you have any examples that the listeners can kind of get a better idea of what that would look like?
It's a great question. So in the first versions of Path to Product, they actually didn't build anything because product managers don't build anything. So like designers design, engineers actually build, and you wonder like what do PMs do? And PMs get made fun of all the time on social media for this, where it's like, the PM helping engineers and it's like faking like you're holding stuff up and you're not actually doing
Yeah.
anything. But in reality, when PM is done well, there's a partnership or a direct execution of user research, of product testing, and you're using all of this data to prioritize and shape what actually gets done. Because yes, the designer is going to design it, and they should be helping out with testing too. Engineers are going to develop it, but the core purpose of a product manager is really twofold. It's one to make sure that what you're prioritizing has the maximum value possible between what the business objectives are and what the customer problems or opportunities are, and really meshing those opportunities together, and then making sure that there's clear transparent communication around what do we need to do, why do we need to do it, and like what are the actual business requirements around this, and then working as a team to make sure we find the best solution to get to the right outcome that we're driving towards. So in the program, they weren't actually building anything. It was, we need to understand what this company does. They would take a real product like a Spotify or a Facebook or a Salesforce, right? And they would set an objective of, here's the business objective, here's the thing that we're trying to accomplish, and then through that lens, they would start doing customer research with users of Spotify, Facebook, Salesforce, and try to understand what is the problem space, and then prioritize that problem space based on the business objective that they're trying to hit. And that's what led them into a design ideation and iteration flow where they'd actually do desirability testing, usability testing, and that would shape through the mock-ups and wireframes what should the acceptance criteria be that we're going to actually use for high fidelity designs and for the actual build out of this feature. So they kind of put on that PM hat as if they were a PM at this company and went through the entire process up to delivery. And that's where we're going to finish things off with the no code course, is now that if you can find your own problems to solve, now you can actually build it and implement it.
Yeah, I think AI too, especially as it gets better. I've seen some insane apps. Obviously, like it's not going to be like replace senior engineers, but you can do some pretty cool stuff and have a pretty good MVP built, that kind of proof of concept
For
kind of thing,
sure.
which is really cool that Path the Product is kind of pushing towards that area.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what does like one of these portfolios look like? Because I know we talked about like obviously when you do like for me, like coding projects, you have something to show. You like host it on servers,
Mm-hmm.
you put it online so like recruiters can see. What do you advise the aspiring product managers once they do this like research, put the PM hat on and like build their own skills that way? What can they do to show off these new skills to recruiters and people, kind of in the industry?
Yeah, it's a great question because to your point, like developers have GitHub, right?
Hmm.
Designers have Dribble and like all kind of other portfolio sites that they can use. PMs have never had anything like that, so we actually built our own like hosted portfolio where whenever you do the assignments, those hands-on projects throughout the whole program, each of those assignments actually uh, push over to the portfolio builder that we have, so you can kind of see it build as you go through the different assignments, and that's all publicly shareable, SEO optimized, so if somebody's searching your name they can find your projects, and you can share those out individually as well. So it really kind of looks like a design portfolio, but the emphasis is on the things that are more specific to PM versus the visual interaction design and the aspects that maybe a design candidate would be focused on.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. I know also kind of to add to that point, something that we were talking, because I took a couple product classes in college and it was
Mm-hmm.
like super eye-opening, just like user research. Yeah, the desirability testing, make sure your idea actually like is wanted by people and they're willing to pay for it and actually
Exactly.
do it. But one of the things they talked about was like getting your stuff out there. Like they always
Mm-hmm.
use the idea of like if you make something and then put it in your closet and hide it and no one's going to see it. And so I think
Yeah,
there's also something to be said about like social media these days. Either Instagram, LinkedIn obviously is a big one, or like other communities like UPG or all these other product communities you can get into, like showing your work and showcasing your work. I think that's also a big part of it, just to kind of get you out there. I know a lot of
totally.
people have like a sort of fear sometimes of like rejection or people are going to make fun of them, but I like in my experience of like posting like dumb apps that I've made that obviously looking back now, I'm like, holy cow, why did I post that? It looks awful. But like people saw it and I remember getting feedback. People like, oh, this is cool. You should do this. And like, I think that process, there's something to be said about that with kind of showcasing
Absolutely.
your work.
Well, and to your point about putting it out there, right? Like getting a PM job is almost like a game. And understanding that you don't have to play by the rules is the thing that's going to set you up for success. So, one of the things that will set you back is if you don't have the title product manager on your resume. So, one of the things I coach the PMs on the Path to Product platform to do is go use Path to Product as a company where you show experience in product management on your LinkedIn and on your resume. Worst case scenario, it'll lead to a conversation that somebody asks you, what is this? And then you can pull up your portfolio and show them, here's all the things I did, and here's how I got this PM experience. I've had hiring managers reach out to me and say, hey, I had somebody, um, you know, apply for this job. I saw that they were associated with your company. Can you tell me more about it? And I was able to use that conversation to help them move forward in the interview process. Because if I can coach them, I know what good looks like, and if they're good, then I'm in a good position to help vouch for them. And that's like we're looking to expand upon that by bringing other experienced PMs into the community of Path to Product for coaching, for rating and reviewing projects, and really in a twofold manner, helping the aspiring PM get other perspectives of how they can improve, but leveraging that as social proof so hiring managers can see, oh, well, these 5 or 6 senior PMs all say that this person's really good. That adds to their credibility.
Oh, for sure. I think even like mentorship, like you're talking about, plays a huge role in you just developing as like in any career, especially product management, and then getting your foot in the door to a lot of places, especially having this social proof, having someone to bounce ideas off of and get feedback really help. At least in my experience, I've had like some incredible mentors who have really expedited my career growth, my career path, just knowing what I'm looking for. And so I can go out there and actually execute and do things. For people out there, because I know networking and finding mentors can
Mm-hmm.
be difficult. I had a lot of friends in college who had a hard time like messaging people and like finding these mentors. What advice do you have to those people on how to like network with product managers or like best practices, I guess, possibly like that you've seen? And how can they find, these mentors or people willing to kind of help them out in their path?
It's a great question. So that's exactly why I started my podcast, is to be able to shorten my my learning curve and be able to network with people that I might not have been able to talk to otherwise. But some of the tactics I found successful in cold outreach is, if somebody posts something interesting, being very specific of like, hey, I heard you say this thing, or I saw that you posted this thing. I've been thinking about this, or I've been debating this, or I really want to talk to you about this. Just being specific about what it is that you want to talk about with a very specific question. If you know if somebody's been on a podcast, or have, like, if they're posting articles on their blog or on Medium or something like that, being able to share that with them and say, hey, I'd love to be able to chat with you about this. This is what I'm going through. But if you are like trying to get into a PM role, just being specific about what you're looking for. What experienced PMs and hiring managers do not like is just saying, "Hey, can you recommend me for this job?" if they don't know you. That's something that will not be successful. But if you have specific problems that you're trying to overcome, or you want advice on, am I saying this in my resume in a way that would resonate with you? Can you give me advice on how you would tweak this? Like, that kind of stuff resonates more than just, hey, can you refer me for this job?
That is like, I've actually had a couple of episodes ago. This was like last year. I had Blake Bohasic on, who's the
Mm.
VP of product at Lucid. He's part of UPG
Love Blake.
community as
Yeah.
well. Yeah, he's an awesome guy, and he said some really awesome things on the podcast where he was saying how like his experience with getting those messages, like, "Hey, can you refer me?" Because on the internal side, and I understand it a lot more now since I like have a job. I'm out of college, but like you kind of put your neck out for this person, and everyone at the company
Yeah.
sees you push this person along, kind of vouch for this person. So if like you just randomly refer some random person you've never met or don't trust and it goes bad, that kind of reflects on you, is like, oh, is your decision making kind of bad? Or like, what were your thoughts on this? So I definitely like really would emphasize the fact that like you should really get to know people and like you said, reach out with like very specific questions, very specific like things that you want help with, or like things that you see them do. And like, hey, this is awesome. Like, I'd love to chat more about this. Or like, I have this question. Can you answer it? And like, I think
Hmm.
also too, it's just like sometimes people are scared just to send that message. And
Yeah.
like I totally get it. Like when I first started out, like with this podcast, or just like networking in general, there's messaging people that I thought were really cool. Like I was like, oh my gosh, they're gonna like, they don't know me. It's gonna be weird. It's gonna be awkward. But then like in my experience, it's never that way ever. Most of the people are
Yeah.
so awesome and they're so willing to help. You just got to go ask. And so if any of you out there are like worried about asking or networking, like just do it. The worst thing that's going to happen is they're not going to respond, which happens sometimes, but like no harm came from that. Like you just shoot your shot and then like some of them will fall and they could change your life. So I
Yeah.
really hope people will
Com-
take that.
Completely agree with you, Max. I mean, especially within the product community and product at large, like PM, Dev, UX, people are so willing to help. And
Mhm.
yeah, if somebody's going to say no, 2 more people are going to say yes. So I completely agree with that advice.
Yeah, definitely kind of push through the rejection as you would in like sales or some other job, because there are like these green fields across after the rejection that can really like change your life for forever.
Totally.
Um, Kind of pivoting off of that, I mean, I do have a question because we kind of talked earlier about like AI. AI is becoming
Hmm.
a bigger thing. On our chat before this, you talked about how like you think AI will change the product management sphere. Could you kind of give us your take on how you think AI is going to change things and how aspiring PMs can leverage AI to kind of help boost them into product?
100%. And because of the rise of AI, we're actually changing a lot of our content on Path to Product to be more relevant to some of the AI workflows, right? So from like I used it recently. I say recently. I've been in this company 8 months, but when I started with Terlumina, I had never been in health tech before. I had no idea that there were four different types of pharmacies within healthcare. I had no idea what these pharmacy technicians were doing. And like I started to do the old school thing of like looking up courses and like reading articles. And finally I just went to Chat GPT and started asking a bunch of very pointed questions. And within like a few days, I was able to have educated conversations with the co-founders about the healthcare space and hospital pharmacies. And so I think from an onboarding standpoint, it's going to drastically increase our ability to ramp up faster and shorten that learning curve of new industries, new roles. And so that's one. And then two, market research. So if I want to get up to date on the market or my competitors, AI is going to help me do that as well from a research perspective. And then there's tools being built out there right now. Like I have a buddy, Brian, who's building this platform called Ask Jack, where all of your company documents can get uploaded into this one central repository to also help with onboarding too, so new employees can quickly find information and things aren't buried within tribal knowledge. So again, like that's just one use case of onboarding, and we can go on and on about doing customer research and interviews and taking transcripts and having LLMs like summarize it, give you the sentiment and all these things that are just shorten the cycle times of being able to get feedback, synthesize it, and do something with it.
Right. I totally agree. And I think that AI is like such a big productivity boost, especially in these areas. Yeah, like sometimes it can hallucinate or give you some like maybe not
Mm-hmm.
completely accurate answers, but like 90% of the time it'll give you great context to what's going on. And it like you can ask it questions. I've had experiences like, hey, explain this more to me, or like, why does this work? Or like I put code in there and say, hey, why does this do this? And it'll explain it. And you can ask it questions again. And so it really breaks down that process, which I think a lot of people should, if they're not already taking advantage of it, really take advantage of it. But for those who like, I mean, as a PM, maybe you can shed some light on this a little
Mm-hmm.
bit more. Like, how technical, especially with AI, do aspiring product managers need to be to be competitive in this race to a product management job? And how can they build those skills?
Yeah, it's a great question because I think the default mode of a lot of non-technical people are I have to learn how to code to be technical. And one of our co-founders at Terlumina, I kind of go pick at him about it because he's trying to learn Python. I'm like, that's not going to help what we're trying to do, man. I've done the same thing, right? And so what I've learned, actually, I've partnered with Irene Yu, who built a program called Skip Level, which teaches PMs how to become more technical. She was a senior engineer for a long time at Amazon and saw that a lot of PMs aren't very technical, and built this course to help um, PMs develop a useful technical competency, I would say. And so from a PM's perspective, I think there's certain things that are helpful to know, right? Like how the internet works, how APIs work, the difference between back end and front end, and how they talk to each other. Um, I mean, you can go much further than that, but I think just understanding some of the basics will help you have better informed conversations with your engineering counterparts. And in terms of AI, I think learning how to use the tools first before having to like understand how they work under the hood is more important, because what's most important is how can we how can we figure out what use cases are going to provide value to our customers, right? Everybody's chasing these chat experiences because they're enamored with what ChatGPT can do. But is chat the best implementation of some value creating solution for your customers? Maybe not. And are you going to force feed another feature into your product just because it's there and it's cool? You probably will try because all your executives are going to tell you to, but is that the right thing you should be doing? Or are there better, more contextual things you can do with AI that'll solve real problems or create real value? And those are the questions PM should be asking versus questions like, should we be fine tuning a model? Should we be using RAG? Should we be doing this technique? Like that's not what's important at first.
Right. And I totally agree, especially when you're a PM, you'll have developers, lead developers, like developer leads that you can say, hey, I want to do this. This is kind of the idea. This is the use case, kind of like you talked about. And they're going to know. Like we have people in my work where I'm like, hey, I want to do this. There's a lot of different ways. Like, what's your advice? And they've been here for 10, 15, 20 years. They know how to do it the best way possible. And so you can definitely lean on them. But I do agree that you need to have that basic knowledge of kind of what AI is, how machine learning works, kind of those sorts of things, just so you can be in those conversations. Kind of like you said, you use ChatGPT to give you some context about the four pharmacies or whatever you said, like that can
Totally.
really help. And I've seen in my example, like I did a course one time from LinkedIn Learning on like AI and large language models.
Hmm.
And the first like 6 hours of it was like deep diving into like the statistics of AI. And like, yeah, it was kind of interesting, but then I go to like actually build some stuff or mess around with it. And it's like, that helps a little bit, but like there's a lot more like it's kind of that whole idea that 20% of the effort will like make 80% of the result. Like there's definitely some
100%.
base things that you can learn that will help you push that farther. Do you have any, I mean, with trying to learn these things, do you have any resources or things that you've seen, either you've used or like other product managers have used to get a better sense of like the technical side of products?
Yeah, it's a great question, especially with AI. So I'm a subscriber to Coursera's like annual thing that they do. Definitely recommend it. It's like a little over $300, and the content is definitely worth it. So I took a specialization program there through Duke called like the AI product manager or something like that. And I was surprised the depth that it went to not only explain how to PM AI projects or AI products, but it actually gave you some hands-on practice with like Google's Vertex platform for training a model and like how to define the right parameters, the hyperparameters. And like you see some of these keywords, but it actually brought it to life of like, what is this and what is it for? And you actually got to use training data sets to train a model and optimize a model and see like what is the percentage efficiency of this model and what is the like the predictability score and all that stuff. So
Hmm.
that's a really fun program that I would recommend if you're looking to get a little bit more hands-on as a PM, as well as kind of like how do you work with data science teams and AI engineers to actually bring some of this stuff to life. Outside of that, I mean, there's tons of podcasts. There's tons of great resources. You can even use AI to learn about AI. I do that all the time with ChatGPT and ask very specific questions of like, how do I like this is my situation. What would you recommend for next steps, or what process should I follow? Like, what method or modality of AI should I use for this problem? So there's a lot out there.
Yeah, I think these courses are great. I've seen some of them. I also would add in there too, like kind of to echo what you're saying is just like go do it. Like you said, getting
Mm-hmm.
that experience of like fine tuning and like hyperparameters. Like, yeah, you might not understand exactly how they work, but you understand what they're doing. And I think doing
Yeah,
it is always going to be the best answer, especially like path to product. I think that's a great example of like, get in there, do it, make like a portfolio, and then you can show it. And then you've learned all this stuff that you can really remember. I know
yeah.
we're kind of coming up on time, but do you have any last advice or words for people out there who are trying to get into product management? They might like think it's daunting, but like, do you have any words of encouragement or advice to help them kind of get their foot in the door before we kind of wrap up?
Absolutely. So it's kind of a three-part process that I have is one, learn it, two, do it, three, show it off. So if you don't have any background, if you're listening to this episode and you are completely new to product management but think it sounds interesting, go take a course, right? Go do a certification. The knowledge is going to be super helpful from a theoretical perspective, but then take that knowledge and immediately put it into practice, and then document what you do, document your steps, document the outcomes that you have, and put that on your resume. However you want to do that, shape it to where you can show this is what I did. Apply it to your day job if you're not in product management, and start crafting those bullet points to sound like you've been doing product management. And screw it, dude. Like, titles are just arbitrary. Change your titles to product manager if that's what you want to be, because that's what's going to like check the boxes and get people to actually look at your resume or your LinkedIn profile.
Right. And I mean, these are such great tips. And I'm sure if we could talk for another hour, we could talk, more. We might have to do another episode, kind of part two of this. But John, I really appreciate you hopping on tonight. Before you guys stop listening, Go check out John's podcast, Lessons in Product Management. I've listened to a lot of the episodes since like preparing for this, and you have some great advice over there. Because how many episodes do you have? You have like 600?
Not that many, but there's a
A
few hundred.
lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few hundred, and those are all like just packed full of like great advice or episodes you've done with product managers. So go
Mhm.
check his podcast out. Go look at the advice he has because it's great and it can definitely help you. And John, I just want to thank you again for hopping on. It's been a great talk, and we might have to do this again.
Yeah. Happy to come back and thanks for having me.